You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hey, Titus. He's here. Hey, Titus, I think your mic is off. I can't hear you. Hey, Titus.
There you go, man. Sorry, dude. I'm sorry I'm late.
Hey,
I apologize for being late. And what's up, homie?
not much. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. We have been doing a lot of stuff. I got my I got a possible script. Some guy liked a script that I wrote a long time ago. We he made a deal with me like 8 years ago, and then it just came back around. And he's like, "Hey, do you still have that script? I have some people interested, so we'll see what happens."
Oh my God, is it Special Unit 2?
I wish. No, it's a drag racing movie. No, it's man, Special Unit 2. That would be the shit.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you because I don't know if this is true, but I heard because the movie that I saw, Special Unit, that you directed and wrote, but I heard that Bryan Cranston directed like a shorter version of it.
So when we did, yes. So Brian, who I knew from Malcolm in the Middle, we used to go. I met Brian because we used to go on these junket things together when I had Titus.
Yeah.
He was the dad of Malcolm in the Middle, so I got to know him. He's a very smart guy. He's really a good dude. Anyway, I asked him if he would direct Special Unit, the pilot, because Comedy Central picked it up. Doug Herzog, the guy that okayed Titus, was now at Comedy Central, and he said, "What do you got?" And I gave him Special Unit. Showtime, by the way. So I gave it to Showtime first, and Showtime they went, "We love this idea." And then I wrote them the script. They paid me for the script. I gave him the script, and I go back in, like, the president of Showtime goes, "We can't fucking do this. You're out of your fucking mind." He goes, "You're out of your fucking mind." So then I took it to Comedy Central, and Herzog goes, "Well, I know what you do, so we're gonna do it. He okayed the pilot. So we shot the pilot, and it was intense. I learned a lot because of Brian, and it was intense, but it was all right. The pilot's okay. And then Michael Aronin, it didn't get picked up, and we finished it. And Michael Aronin was like, "Man, I wish you do it." And I made a promise to Michael. I said, "I will get this movie made. I don't know when. It took me 10 years to get the movie made."
Wow. So that I didn't know that it started off as a show first, and then you made it to a movie. That's
Uh-huh.
pretty cool.
Yep.
And then I wanted to ask you because I don't know if you shot it before the pandemic, but then you brought back Titus for 2 more episodes.
Yep.
And I think I thought it was brilliant because it was like how it ended on how you wanted to end it.
Well, they didn't. Well, there's a couple ways we could have ended Titus. So what we wanted to do was, because I didn't get along with the network president. Network president was really being a dick.
Yeah.
And by the way, at that time, maybe I wasn't being. Here's the thing. I was raised with a dude that was like, my dad never couched anything in any kind of diplomacy or anything. He just said it. He just said what he said. So I grew up like that. So in show business, which someone said years ago, Robert Towns said, it's just high school with money.
Yeah.
And if you basically talk shit to the wrong person, you can get, they will use their power against you. And that's what happened with Gail Berman. Gail Berman was messing the show up, and I called her on it, and whatever. I should have just shut up.
Right.
So what happened was that here's how we were going to end Titus. We were going to end it as the last scene is me in the mental hospital, with Cynthia Watros, and then we were going to cut to pull out, like I start talking to the camera, and then we cut out, and it's the security room at a mental health facility, and there's 2 guards there, and they're just staring. They just go, "This guy's been talking for 3 years. This is the crazy." And so basically, the whole show would have been based in my mind in the mental hospital,
Yeah.
and we talked about it, and Jack and Brian Jack and Brian said, you know what? If we do that, the show's over. Because we weren't sure they were going to cancel us. They canceled the show. They had to tell me before midnight on whatever it was. It was May 15th, so I can go to the upfronts. They called me at 11:56 and told me it was canceled. They waited till almost midnight.
Oh, what if they didn't call you? Does that mean they would have gotten picked up again?
If they didn't call, well, I mean, they had to. They were going to call me either way, but they
Right.
waited to the last minute to tell me.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, somebody stayed up. Somebody missed out on sleep to be a.
They were like torturing you on that.
That's right. No, no, no. Let him. No, let him. No, he's panicking right now. Let his armpits continue to sweat. It's going to be all right. So,
This
you
is
know,
probably before Twitter, so you couldn't like see what the tweets were saying. You know what I mean? So like,
that might have changed it because if we had social media that was really talking about the show, I think if that show had been around during social media, I think we'd had a different vibe on it. You know, it's amazing how fast we all find out when something's good or when something's bad now.
yeah. So how did you get everybody on board to do these last two episodes for you? Like, and how was the
Well,
chemistry? Was it still there?
yo, 100%. Have you seen them?
I saw the last two, but I
Um,
haven't seen
so
the show in forever. So like, it
so what
was
happened was that the pandemic started, and it's funny. My job is not a work at home job. I need an audience. When we go out and do stand up, dude, we need an audience, right?
yeah,
So because I have the sound stage, I said, well, I told Ray, I said, let's live stream some stuff. So we live streamed a couple of shows, and then we wrote a couple of sketch shows, which we're going to do another one coming up, and people paid for them. So we kind of survived. We got through it, and then I said, I never got to end the show, and I have all this free time. I'm home every day. Why don't I write a final episode of Titus? So I called Zach, and Zach said yes, because Zach wasn't working. He's an actor. Dave Shatra, actor. Cynthia, actor. None of them were working.
yeah,
I said, if we do, and I had a buddy of mine who was doing this thing called EnviroShield, which he was basically spraying the room and killing all viruses. And we would do that every morning, so it cost us a little bit of money to do that. But I was like, well, if we can do this, will you guys do it? They said, yeah. Then I called Stacy Keach, and Stacy Keach said, I'd love to, but it's going to have to be after this pandemic is over because I'm not going to get sick. Stacy was 79, 80 at the time.
yeah.
And I said, tell you what I'll do. I'll come up. I'll write you the way I write it. I'll write your scenes so we can actually. I started thinking, how can we use it? And I talked to Zach, and Zach said, what if we did? You remember that movie Prometheus? Because Zach does shit like that. Zach will just go. He'll bring up something from like that seems totally unrelated. You're like, what the Prometheus? This is a sitcom. What the fuck are you talking about? He goes, do you remember the screen on the robot's face? It was like an iPad screen, and they used his face for expression. He goes, what if Dad was somewhere else and we had him on an iPad and or something? And I was like, oh shit, that's it. So, and it was easy because so I thought, well, how do we get Stacy? What would make sense with the show? So
Right.
Stacy, I'm getting out of the mental hospital. So the thing was, it's 8 years later. I'm getting out of the mental hospital. Dave has told Dad I'm getting out on this certain day, but he used the wrong calendar. He used the paleo pagan calendar instead of the normal fucking calendar because he's Dave. And Stacy has said, well, if he's coming out in a week, I'm gonna go burn out all my bad Ken. And we were like, is there a good Ken? So Dad is basically in Mexico in a Mexican prison on his phone, and he keeps interjecting. So and then Zach came up with this brilliant idea. And thank God for our prop master. He said, "What if we could get a mount to where the screen was right here? Because we used Stacy and we shot over the shoulder first, and then Zach goes, I need to fix this." And then he built Robot Dad. He built that thing, and our prop master built this amazing thing. And then what we did was we had a remote. Ken had remote. So here's what happened. I went to Stacy's Keach's house in Santa Barbara. I filmed everything I needed against a green screen. I filmed all of it.
Yeah.
I had him
It
do
was
it
just
live.
you though.
Just me, yeah, just me with Stacy, and I filmed everything with him and told him what I wanted. And Stacy's such a fucking pro, and he did everything exactly right. And then after we did that, I had all this footage, and we brought it down, and then Ken hooked up the system where we could remote control the iPad. So we would do is we would do the scene, and it took a minute to get the rhythm right, but we would do the scene, and then he would hit play, and then Stacy would speak on cue on the iPad.
Wow.
So it looked like he was there. And then we did, and even at the last scene, there's a scene where I talked to him on the iPad at the very end of this, because it ended up being 2 episodes. It was 44 minutes long, and so that's 2 TV episodes.
Yeah.
And so I'd rehearsed with the iPad. In the last scene, we just let it run, and I just rehearsed with what we already had. We ran it as one thing, and I rehearsed between it, so it looks like I'm talking to Stacy live.
Yeah.
And no one ever once goes, oh, you can tell where it's fucked up. They're just like, how'd you guys get Stacy to do that?
I couldn't tell. Yeah, that's
it's awesome, right?
movie magic right there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then and we did, the flashbacks we just shot on green screen, and I have to be honest, it's and I paid the actors. No one was making money, so everybody's happy to get a little bit of money. And then we put it up, and we didn't make a whole lot of money on it. It's not like, I think we paid for the production and the actors, and I think we made maybe $5,000 on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the point. The point was that people were it's so funny because the real fans of the show were so freaked out about the big turn in it with Tommy and Aaron. They were like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, and that's what had to happen. You're right, and it was, and at least you ended it, so it gives hope at the end, and it was exactly what I wanted to do. And if anybody had any, also here's the good thing for me is that if anybody had any doubt that I did or did not write the show, they're pretty sure that I wrote the show.
Yeah.
I mean, we had great writers too, but I used to come in with the story ideas and stuff. And we had, by the way, the show had amazing writers. We had 14 great guys. Jack and Byron were great. Everybody on that show was a fucking monster. So to do it by myself was a little daunting. And in fact, I brought Patrick Megan in, who's one of the writers on the show, and I sent him the script when I finished. And he gave me like 6 good jokes. He's like, all right, what if you said this here, here, here? And I was like, oh, dude, it's like you're on part of the show again. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, nice. And then, so you've been training for the special, then the pandemic happened.
Right.
Zero side effects.
No, I was working on Carrying Monsters, but it was called Stories I Shouldn't Tell. I was working on that, and then I had been doing I did like 3 months with it. And then what happened was that the pandemic happened. So I kind of it was in that weird stage when I write a show where I'm still looking at notes or I'm still, doing whatever. And what happened was I just decided, well, I guess I can't do this right now. And since I wasn't doing stand-up anyway, I just kind of put it aside. And then as the pandemic kind of started happening and we were doing the Armageddon updates and stuff, I started to realize that I was building. If I just took the Armageddon, because white supremacy, we had Charlottesville, we had all this shit going on. And I'm like, well, I can just take this stuff that's happening, and I'll start to build a show. And out of necessity, I needed to build a show to pay my fucking bills, and I knew we had cameras. We had cameras for the live stream. I know. I'll do this next special live stream from the studio. Yeah. So I did it twice. I did it twice in 2 years. I did it twice. Once when it was really brand new, and I did it again, and we live streamed it. We got a bunch of people to watch it. And then when it was done, I told Ray, I said, she goes, you can go back to the other show. And I go, I need to finish this one. It had gotten pretty good. So I took it out on the road, and it started killing, and it definitely pissed off some Trumpers. And so I thought, well, I have to do it now. For some people, that's when I know I got it right, man. When I got it right, when like 90% of the people are hysterically laughing and 10% are like, fuck you. I'm like, all right, there you go. A little bit, that's the right amount of garlic in the show. All right. Yeah, so then we filmed that, then we got that done. We filmed that, and then I was like, what do I do next? And I was like, oh wait, I have Carrying Monsters, which wasn't called Carrying Monsters then, and I started rewriting it and adding stuff to it, and then that became this show, man. And by the way, I just did your place down there in Huntington Beach, dude. That place, you've really turned that into a comedy room. It's a comedy room now. It's not. First time I didn't, because by the way, the first time I broke in Carrying Monsters when it was called something else. I did it there. Yeah, I did it there. It was the first time I ever did it.
I was telling you that, and then like, you know, because like now when I saw it, it was like way more, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is going to be gold. And then the pandemic happened, so I didn't know if you were still using that same set and stuff. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you stuck with it.
Well, I got to finish it. So it's weird because my first special was Norman Rockwell's Bleeding, which is where I thought I was pushing the envelope with my family material. And then now I'm 20 years later, and because that was '04, I'm 20 years later, and I'm doing Carrying Monsters, which is the real stories, all the way down to my sister blowing her brains out and stuff. And it's like it's funny. Norman Rockwell seems so quaint compared to Carrying Monsters, with the divorce and the losing the kids, and so it's interesting, man. I love doing comedy. I don't know what the next one. I've started writing ideas on my phone, but I don't know what the next one is.
Ah, well, as long as it's not about your Asperger friend who begs you to do his podcast every 6 months.
Mm.
But no, I wanted to ask you because I mean I have some dark jokes too, but they're not like as dark as that. But how do you get away with that to make it funny too? Like, is there a way that you like trained yourself, to get it like that?
It's weird, man. I remember years ago I was on the road. I was at a club. I think it was Greenville, North or South Carolina, and I was working with Jim Brewer. He was featuring at the time. When we went out, it was when you had to go rent videos, and we didn't want to go hang out and stuff. So we started renting. We rented a bunch of comedy videos, and I think we rented like 4 or 5 Richard Pryor specials,
Yeah.
and we were sitting there watching them. And there was a couple where we literally on the floor hysterically laughing, and I remember that week thinking, how is he doing a bit about his heart attack, or how is he doing a bit about setting himself on fire? And then years later, I took the Landmark Forum, and I got that anything's funny as long as you tell the truth about it. You couldn't tell a bad story and lie about it, and it's weird. The audience knows when you're lying. They don't know, like,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
they don't know, like, aha, that guy's lying, but that collective conscience knows. They're like, well, he's not that funny. I don't what? So when I wrote Norman Rockwell, and I wrote that in 95, 96. I think I wrote it in 96. I decided, because I was going to quit comedy, I decided to just go for it, just write the truth of what I had with me right now, and as angry as I could. And I explored. I went way angry for a while. I went super angry. I can still do that, but when I first changed my act, because I tried to make everybody like me before, but that's not who I am. You've met me. That's not who I am. I'm not a guy that ever goes, yeah, that guy seems okay. Like, is that guy going to be my friend, or is he going to punch me? Is he going to punch me, or are we okay? Yeah. So what happened was I wrote Norman Rockwell and really explored how I really felt about stuff. And here's how you write. Excuse me, I hadn't eaten today. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Here's how you write comedy, edgy and honest. You can't be in it. You can't write it from in it. Like, I could never write the bit about my dad or my divorce. I couldn't write the bit about my divorce without being over it.
Right.
So my divorce is over. I've got Rachel, who's my new wife, who's amazing. I've continued to make money. I continue to pay off lawyers. I'm fine. I drive a Tesla. I live in a house on a golf course. I'm fine. So in my head, I've not forgiven my wife, but I've moved past it, my ex-wife. I've moved past it. So now I can see it as absurd. Like, if you're mad about your Asperger's, if you're mad about it, it's going to be a lot harder to write about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But if you can see how silly it is and how absurd it is and how it makes you a little different and what's the upside of that, and you start approaching it from that angle, you're giving people an insight into something that they didn't have. So when I talk about my divorce, my dark family, my mom taking me to bars when I was 4, if I wrote that from an angry place, it would never have been funny. It would sound like a group therapy session. People would be like, oh my God, he needs help.
Yeah.
But because I step outside of it and I write it like I'm a 4-year-old in a bar, and what do 4-year-olds do? They find a place to play. It doesn't matter where they are. They can be, literally at Chernobyl, and they'll figure out what to do. They'll start playing. So when I wrote it from what happened that night, and from the eyes of a 4-year-old, it was a lot easier. And you have to be honest, man. You can write the darkest. That's why Pryor got over on setting himself on fire, freebasing. because he didn't say it wasn't my fault. He didn't say you guys don't know what addiction's about. He basically said, I know these jokes you motherfuckers are telling about me, which means he was part of the joke. You know, and he talked about setting himself fire, and the fire jumped on you, and I mean that whole bit about him setting himself on fire is he's not in it. He's not in it. He's not talking from Richard Pryor. He's explaining it in a funny way to us. So, but he's dead honest about what happened. So you got to be dead honest, and you can't be in it. You can't write the bit from inside the pain of the bit. Like if he wrote it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of actually like that makes a lot of sense because I remember, Norm, he had a big cancer joke. It was like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, you gotta have a battle with cancer. Yeah. He's winning, he's losing his battle with cancer.
Yeah, but then like you realize, I mean, I didn't know it at the time when he was, doing that material, but now it makes sense that he's living through that, but he doesn't want the people to know he has it, so he's like making jokes about it.
Norm, man, that's weird, man, because it's so funny. I always loved Norm. I remember the first time we went on Letterman, and he was doing, hey, I got a bunch of body parts, chopped them in a bag. I remember that first, and I remember that was a long time ago, man. Wasn't that in the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
And he was so good, and nobody was doing what Norm had a way. You were good friends with him, but he had such an interesting way of thinking about shit. Did he have cancer when he wrote that cancer bit?
I mean, they said he had it for 10 years. I mean, I found out he had it 6 months before he died, so I didn't know how long he had it. But yeah, so like that's what I'm assuming. And I do remember one time Norm tweeted, and this actually involves you. Norm, when Trump won for president, Norm tweeted, "Oh, we should all forgive him and give him a chance or something." And then you retweeted, you're like, "You're asking us to do the impossible."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, by the way, that's one thing about Trump. No matter when people said that, when Chappelle went on SNL and he was like, I'm gonna give him a shot. You're gonna give the fucking joke guy who fucking poured like champagne on a Rolls Royce emblem in a porn video. You're gonna give that guy a shot. There's some people you don't fucking give a shot to. You don't give the guy. It's funny to me because Trump in his 20s was literally brought up on charges for him and his dad for not letting minorities live in their apartment buildings. The guy's a fuck. He's been a fuck forever, and that people continue to buy his bullshit stuns me. Stuns me. So when even Norm tweets it, I'm like, dude, come on.
I remember because I was with him when you retweeted it, and we looked at it, and Norm's like, "That's a funny joke."
Oh, good.
So, and I also think like you're the best on Twitter because people, although you're serious, but you're also tweeting in a joking way. You know what I mean? Where like you're I don't think you're viciously trying to attack people. You know what I mean?
If they go after me, I get them. I'm a fighter, so if you go after me like, yeah, loser, you fucking loser, man, your career's over. I'm like, first of all, no one knows you, bro. No one like what did you have a career? And like, so I'll start like just asking, like, what have you done exactly? I don't know you. Tell you what, I'll make it easy for you. Blocked, and I would just fucking. Twitter, I stopped going to. I think Elon Musk is it was already a cesspool. But it's like he brought in a backhoe and just made a much bigger cesspool. He just made, we had an outhouse and we all kind of went there and it was kind of, we all knew it was shitty. And then he just brought in a fucking, like a sewage treatment plant and decided to turn off the sewage treatment. It's just sewage now. I saw someone get like a dead body on it. There was this. At first, it was like car accidents, and then I noticed that I followed it for a second, and then I noticed that it was actually car accidents where people died, and they were letting the video run, and I'm like, I can't watch this. Well,
I think Twitter kind of went downhill when they started charging for the blue check mark because one, I think a check mark, if you earned it, you earned it. You know what I mean? I
spent 12 years building that many followers. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you need to pay for, I just don't believe in that. So like, yeah, I could get a blue check mark now, but I didn't earn it. You know what I mean?
Right. So what he did was he took something that took us years to build and develop, and made it totally meaningless. And it's worked out so well for him. I mean, if you look at the last what valuation of Twitter, it's a third of what he paid for it. Which means he's lost like $30 million or 18 million, 26 million billion dollars. But how fucked up it is that he has so much money that he could lose 26 billion and be like, yeah, I'm all right.
Well, he probably doesn't know he's lost it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So it's like, and you know what the weird is like, I no longer have Asperger's. I have Elon Musk disease.
Yeah, you're a genius. Now you're a genius. You just walk around going, no, I'm a quirky genius. That's what I am. I don't have Asperger's. I'm a quirky genius.
Yeah, I'm just going to burn Twitter to the ground and be like, all right.
Yeah, you're taking this podcast from 3,000 listeners down to 1,000. That's what you're doing. Because you're a quirky genius. It's weird, man. It's funny. We were talking about how people tell the truth about stuff, and there's an interesting thing happened recently that I want to bring up, and I just thought of it. And it's someone who I fucking love. It's a comic who I think is a fucking certified genius. Literally, I think he's one of the best storytellers. I think he's one of the funniest storytellers. And the interesting thing about it was, remember what I said about Pryor being dead honest?
Yeah.
And I think I am in my comedy. I really work hard to find the pure truth, so I can, because like I'm gonna be sappy and give you, here's my life lesson at the end. You know me.
That's one of the things I love about you, though, is because like you bring in the truth and you can make it funny like that. So like,
right? Hold on, something was going on. What just turned on? Something that was weird. Something just turned on. That's weird.
Oh my God.
Yes, woo.
Yeah. Do you have a ghost in your studio?
Yeah, I do now, I guess. So here's what happened is, no, it's Elon Musk listening is what it was. He's fucking connected. He's fucking Wi-Fi'd into this thing right now. He's got a thing at home whenever you mention Twitter and how much money it lost, it just goes, bloop, and then fucking he just goes, click, this motherfucker. That's what happened. So there's a comic that had a big thing happen, a big giant thing happen in his life, and I couldn't wait for the special. I heard he was doing a special about it, and it came on Netflix, and I watched it. It was Mulaney, and by the way, Mulaney's fucking certified genius. Honestly, John Mulaney. There's so many comics that I can quote, but not a whole lot I can or care to quote from the last maybe 15 years. There's some great guys, it's all Carlin, it's all, Mulaney's one of those guys, and Birbiglia. I love what Birbiglia does, but who's just so fucking good. And I couldn't wait for this special about his addiction. And when it came out, I don't know. It seemed to me, and I'd love to talk to Mulaney about this. I'd love to have him on my podcast because I'd like to figure out. Like it almost seemed like he kind of didn't go all the way into it. Did you see the special?
No, to be honest, I'm not a big Mulaney fan though.
Oh, you go his earlier stuff, man. If you listen to Salt and Pepper Diner, and when you hear, because you write good comedy and stuff, you understand it. Listen to Salt and Pepper Diner. It's this bit where him and his buddy go to this diner when they were like teenager, 12, and they plugged in the jukebox and they put in 21 plays of What's New Pussycat by Tom Jones, and then they sat down and to see what would happen. And it comes apart, dude. The whole diner's like, what the fuck? Like the third play, they're like, what the fuck is going on? And so you have to listen to it. Mulaney's a real, really genius. And then him and Nick Kroll did that play. They're just geniuses. But I always thought that when I saw the new special, my wife said it. We were watching it, and she goes, because we both love Mulaney, and she said, wow. She goes, he seems still angry that they made him go to rehab. There wasn't it's almost like there was no release in it. And by the way, I think Mulaney's, again, I'm going to say it clearly, a genius. And anybody who wants to say shit about my comedy specials, please bring it up. I would so argue with you about it or agree with you. But I think as comics, I think so many comics get so weird about talking about other comics, but I think it's our job. It's our job as comics to kind of police each other. And when I started comedy, it was like that. If you did shitty comedy when I started in San Francisco, if you got up on stage and you talked about, if you did racial shit, or if you did, pussy jokes, or if you did butt fucking jokes, there was a guy, and I called him recently, this guy named Hutch that used to run the open mic at the Punchline. Mm-hmm. you'd get off stage after doing a set like that, and he'd go, "You can't get on the list for a month." And why he goes, "Because that's what you're doing is bullshit. We've been doing comics have been doing that shit forever. Come up with something new and original, and I'll put you back on the list." And we don't have that anymore, man. We have this weird gunslinger fucking Wild West internet where anybody who's got like 4 dick jokes and a racial comment can fucking get 700,000 views, and then next thing, and then
I think that's sad though. You know what I mean?
I think it's really sad for comedy, but here's the problem. So here's the problem with comedy. Music, whether you're 4 years old or you're 84 years old, a good song will come out and you go, "Oh, that's a good song." Comedy is really generational. The hard part is comedy never travels. Comedy really is basically, even Cosby kind of sounds old now. If Cosby wasn't a rapist, I would say Cosby stuff still plays.
Yeah.
But even then, it still does feel quaint. It feels like an older version of comedy. So what happens with comedy? So you've got a new generation that has their decade of comedy. You have, when Carlin was out, it was coming out of the '60s and the '70s, where people were like, "Yeah, we are thinkers and we all went to college, and Reagan hasn't fucked up our education system yet." So they loved Carlin. And then Robin Williams came out, Robin Williams hit. And then you had all these guys who loved Williams. It was still smart, but it was wicked fast, and Robin was doing impressions. So Robin Williams changed comedy. And then Robin became an actor and kind of moved on. And then we had Dice came in. Now, here's my point. When Dice came in, those jokes that Dice was doing are old as fuck. They're old as fuck. They're dirty. But Dice did something brilliant. He became a character that was that. If Dice had just got up in a jacket with the sleeves pushed up and done that act, he never would have got any. But because he walked down with this fucking shiny leather jacket, he looked like Fonzie, and he's just spewing this angry shit like a hoodlum from whatever era that is, it looked new. But the jokes themselves, and I think Dice would say it's a character. It was always a character. It was always a character.
Yeah.
So then you have also, you had a new generation that loved Dice, and they were young people. Well, now you've got these other new guys coming out, these bro comics, that you've got this new generation that has never heard those dick jokes before. They've never heard those racial jokes before. So they're hearing them for the first time. I've been around since I started in '83. So right. I've been around so fucking long. When I see some of these new guys doing the same shit I've seen since '83, I go, that's a fucking hack. Like guys would get kicked off the open mic for doing that. But now those guys get 700,000, 2 million views on this horrible racist shit because the new generation, and what'll happen, it always happens, that audience will get smarter about comedy. They'll drag out Patton's, Werewolves and Lollipops. Someone will go, "You should listen to this," and they'll go, "Holy shit, this is totally different." And they'll drag out. Someone will give them, "You're All Diseased" by Carlin, and once they realize, oh, that's the thing about comedy audiences. Comedy audiences have to mature to become good comedy audiences.
Well, it's also the same with comics too, because, like, for example, if I were to ask you, Titus, who's your 4 Mount Rushmore comics, I'm sure you would say Pryor and Carlin for 2 for sure, right?
Robin when he started, and then I would go, man, it's weird. I'd have to give it an asterisk because he's a rapist. But storytelling, Cosby, say what you will about Cosby, man. Cosby, dude, I even have a Cosby cadence. Like,
terrible person, great comic though.
Yeah, if I tell people, I'll tell comics, go listen to my show. I go, he go, "Why do you like Cosby?" I go, he goes, "You don't seem to be like Cosby at all." I go, oh, you're wrong. I go, listen to my show, and I go, "My father came in with my stepmother," and it's fucking, and people go, "Holy shit, that's a Cosby cadence." So I still have that.
Yeah.
So those would be the 4 I would put on, and there's some really honorable mentions I'd put up there. But go ahead, finish what you were going to say.
Oh, so what I was going to say is, so like if you were to ask me, I've been doing stand-up for 16, 17 years. I wouldn't say any of those names. I would say Cosby, but I would say Norm, obviously, because
Norm?
He changed the game for me. I would put you on it because just how your style is. I mean, you have 11 specials. And then I would put Harlan Williams on it. And But
Harlan, oh my God! But those are like you just listed, and I'm taking me out of it because I'm just
yeah,
I'm more like a like if I could pick who I would want to be, and I'm not talking popularity, but I'm talking about how I write because I have 10 specials. I've got 10 finished. I'm working on my 11th. I would want to be Springsteen or Prince, a guy that just kept putting it out. Fucking here you go. And like I think people know when I finally put something out, they're like, okay, I don't know what it's going to be about. It may piss me off, but it's not going to suck.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Harlan, you pick. It's interesting, Norman Harlan. That you picked Norman Harlan. Those guys. So here's two things that Norman Harlan had to do, and my wife called it. My wife nailed it. You know, Ray does comedy now too. She nailed this. Harlan and Norm did something. So when Norm would get on stage, Norm had his own language, and if you probably work with Norm, I mean, where for the first 3 minutes, Norm's not killing. They're
No, no, he's bombing, but he gets
yeah,
top
right.
on it.
And same with Harlan. I've seen Harlan go up sometimes, and for the first 3 minutes, people are like, I showed him my son. My son wants to try stand up, and I showed him. I go, we were talking about how and why, and I said you have to have the balls to do something where you're actually setting them up to fail. You have to. And he goes, what? And I go, let me show you Harlan Williams. And Ray called it. Harlan and Norm spent 3 minutes or 4 minutes teaching the audience their language. And the second the audience understood their language,
They're the funniest. Yeah.
they were fucking in. You know, Harlan's like, how's it going, buddy? How's it going? Give my little cabbage banana smoothie. And like, what? And then like you see, but we speak the language. We know Harlan's language. So we're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's funny. But imagine not knowing that and have some guy get up and go, how's it going, my cabbage banana smoothie? And what the fuck is this guy talking? My son stood here as I played Harlan and goes, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then 3 minutes in, he starts laughing.
Yeah.
He starts laughing. So and Norm did the same thing. I remember when one of my favorite Norm clips is when he was on Conan. It's really fun to watch Norm like with Conan because Conan, you can tell how much Conan loves Norm, but also Conan's a really fucking smart guy. Conan's
Yeah.
really funny and really smart. Conan, I always think is thinking far beyond, But do you remember "You Dirty Dog"? You remember that thing he did? "You Dirty Dog" that Norm did on guesting on Conan. He told
No.
this really long story.
Was it the moth joke?
I think it was the moth joke.
Because I drove him to Conan on that day.
But again, I'm watching for the first 3 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? And you remember what he did on the roasts when he did the roast and he read those really bad jokes and he did them balls out. Remember?
Yeah. For
And
Saget. Yeah.
and all of a sudden the comics are hysterical, but the audience is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because the comics, we all knew Norm in his comedy, so we all spoke his language, so that's why they laughed. But the audience was like, "What the fuck is he doing?" And the great thing is to watch Norm's joy in watching the audience go, "What the fuck?" He enjoyed it, didn't he? Enjoy it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and see, like, when we were talking about writing jokes, because like I'm trying to write. I don't know. I'm trying to write 15 or 20 minutes about what was like working with him, but like it's like you said, I'm not really over it to really get that funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think you saw that at the Rec Room where I had clips of it being really funny, and then I had clips of I'm not quite there yet. You know what I mean?
That just keep going for it, and when you find a place that's really hard to talk about, put it aside or put it near the end because you should write this. To honor Norm, if you're gonna do that, in my opinion, and this is just me, just fucking bullshit. Me, just like no one gives a fuck about my opinion. But I would write the bit about the weird shit that you got to do with Norm because we all love because Norm's mind was so bizarre, man. Like I remember reading his golf shit like on Twitter, like what the fuck is he doing? Like not knowing like what's he's live tweeting golf. Norm Macdonald is live tweeting golf, and I'm like, I was weirdly interested in it.
One of the funniest nights I ever had, we did South Point Casino, and South Point isn't on the Strip. So
I used to head, yeah, it's I call it almost Vegas. It's almost Vegas.
So we had to walk to the Strip, and it was like I don't know, a 25-minute walk maybe. And
It's a long ass way.
Yeah. So we walked to the strip, and as we're on the strip, we're seeing all the. This is like 3 a.m. In the morning, where all these like street hookers are out, and Norm would go up to every lady, by herself, and be like, "Excuse me, are you a lady of the night?"
Are you a lady of the night? Are you?
Titus, he was doing this all the way down the strip. It was just hilarious.
What was their reaction?
I mean, some of them said, "Hey, you want a date?" or something like that, but he did it to everyone, like it was just so funny because you were like, how could this get funnier after every single time?
Because Norm didn't care, man. I mean, I told my son, I said, if you want to do comedy, man, you have to find a way to access your "I don't give a fuck." And Norm had no issues with that. Remember the one he told? Remember the joke he told on Conan where he goes, this guy goes to the doctor. His wife's in a coma, and he says, "Doctor," he goes, "She's in a coma. I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, maybe you should try oral sex to wake her up." He goes, "What? What are you talking about? Oral sex? What? That seems kind of odd. No, try it. It might wake her up." Okay. And a guy goes in the room, comes back 5 minutes later. "Doc," he goes, "Did it work?" He goes, "No, Doc, she's choking." And Conan, you see Conan just cover like Conan's shaking. He's shaking, laughing, and aware that Norm just did this on television. "No, Doc, she's choking." Norm was it's funny, I've been around so long, and we've lost so many good guys. I mean, Geraldo. I mean, when I hear Geraldo, I listen to Geraldo. I'll listen to Comedy Central sometimes on a long trip, and I'll listen to Geraldo, and I'll just be like, same with Patrice, where I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, what a shame, fuck. Like, could we kill some unfunny guys, please? Like,
Yeah.
just maybe we're not hearing about those, but Patrice and Geraldo, Mitch, I listened to because Mitch had his own language too.
Mitch was great. He'd probably be on my mountain.
Yeah, Gerald again, but you like guys, see, and that might be your aspect. You like guys that they have to train the audience to speak their language. Me, I just want I want to be Carlin. I just want to get up and just go boom, boom. I always wanted to. I saw. Here's the thing: I saw Leno years ago. People always give Leno shit for they're just like, oh, he was on the Tonight Show, isn't that funny? And I go, do you guys know why he got the Tonight? These young comics, I want to go. Do you understand how Leno got the Tonight Show? He was the baddest motherfucker that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Some people say, I'll tell you two stories about Leno real quick, because I also respect anybody that can get up on stage and do this is my hero. I don't even care if you suck. If you had the balls to walk on stage and you made a room full of strangers laugh, A, you have the psycho of a serial killer, but B, yeah, you do, man. I've said this before. The comics have to be the most delusional human beings on the planet. It's serial killer level. Dude, you have to walk on stage and think you're the smartest person in the room, you're the funniest person in the room, you're the most charismatic person in the room, and everybody's going to like you in 15 seconds. That's psychotic. That's psychotic. But Leno, I saw Leno years ago. I had managed when I was like 18. I was 19, maybe 19. I'd been doing comedy for almost a year, maybe. And my manager took me to go see Leno in Marin. And you got to remember, this is 84. So Leno was at the peak of his powers. He was on, he was on Letterman all the time. And he was just, and people go, oh, he's so soft. And I go, Leno used to walk on stage. His opening joke was, he walks on stage and he goes, they clap, the place goes nuts, and he walks. He goes, so, you guys, I hear that Nancy Reagan got Woman of the Year, and the audience claps. And he goes, thank God she beat that Mother Teresa bitch. That was his opening joke. He didn't even say hi. He just and then he did another thing later on where he was real socially relevant. He goes, you guys heard about that Live Aid? And they clap. And he goes, hey, you heard Farm Aid? Yeah, and We Are the World? Yeah. And he goes, it's great, isn't it? And they clap. And he goes, any of you guys heard of voting? And it was poignant, and it made a point. And then years later, he did my benefit. I did a benefit. I have a kids charity called Insight Youth Project, and he did the benefit. And it was on the Tonight. He's on the Tonight Show still, and he did the benefit. Here's how good of a dude Leno is. Not only did he do the benefit, which sold a bunch of tickets, at the benefit, he hands me a check for $10,000 for the charity. Now
Oh my God.
he'd probably be pissed I told you that, but that's the kind of dude Leno is.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we're sitting there, and him and I have a weird relationship in a sense that I when my divorce happened, I ran into him at a car show and I just unloaded on him. And to this day, he remembers it. It's like I was such a douchebag. But anyway, so Leno's backstage.
And he didn't ask for the 10 grand back.
No, he did not. Thank God. So we're at the benefit, and John Lovitz happened to be on stage. John Lovitz had just started doing comedy, just started.
Oh, yeah.
And Lovitz was like, he's Lovitz. He's fucking Lovitz can just get on stage and be Lovitz, and you're gonna like Lovitz. But Lovitz is doing these pussy licking jokes. He's doing he's like, so I'm down between her legs, you see, and he's doing these, and I'm backstage, I'm emceeing it, and here's the show. It was me emceeing, Lovitz, Bill Maher, and Leno. That was the show.
Yeah.
And so he's on stage. So Lovitz and Leno turns to me and goes, so it's a kids' charity, huh? I guess pussy licking jokes are what you're going for on this, Titus? And I was like, and I go, man, I mean, I guess he's being edgy. I go, you were edgy? He goes, yeah, you know why I stopped being edgy? I go, why? And he goes, $32 million a year. That's why I stopped being edgy. And I thought, that's a good reason to stop being edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Lovitz story that also involves Norm, but then I want to ask you two questions that I got on Twitter. So I didn't open the show. I was just hanging out with Norm, and it was at a casino with him and Lovitz. And the MC is he's like, well, one comic's on the stage. He goes up to Norm Lovitz. He's like, okay, who wants to go first? And Lovitz is like, I'll go first. Norm could follow me. And Norm just looks at me like, gives me the look. You know what I mean?
Oh no! So did Norm have a look where like, oh fuck, this is about to go bad?
No, yeah. So Lovitz goes on stage, and and Norm goes, he's like, Keith, you should go outside and see how easy it is to follow Lovitz.
Wow. Yeah, Norm was Hitler's dog. Like Norm, do you know why? You knew him a little better. Why did he not tell anybody that he had cancer?
I don't know.
Really?
Here's how I found out. And I've actually never said this on a podcast or anything. So we were supposed to go see Mortal Kombat. So I called Norm. He didn't pick up. And Norm always had this thing, like, if you don't hear from me in 3 or 4 text messages, call me until I pick up. Like, that was his thing because he knew about my social disorder and stuff. So, like, he said, keep bugging me until I...
Oh, that's cool. So Norm was a nice human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I called him and he wasn't picking up. And then 18, calls later, he FaceTimes me and he's like in the hospital. His hair is bald and stuff. I was like, Norm, what's going on? He's like, he said, I got to tell you this, but you got to swear you won't tell anyone. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I have cancer and I'm beating it. So I can't go see Mortal Kombat with you today. And I was like, oh, okay. But like how he said it like he was actually beating it. He told me it was colon cancer, but the autopsy report said leukemia. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know the difference, but I just remember it was the most heartbreaking call. But when he told me that he's going to be okay and we'll see Mortal Kombat in a couple weeks, like that kind of made me feel like, okay, if he says he's beating it, he's beating it. You know what I mean?
Well, he wasn't a complainer, obviously.
Yeah. So
it was. I remember when it happened. I didn't know Norm. But my wife and I, like, he was one of our favorites to watch, and it happened. I remember just being like knocked out. Like, I didn't know Robin Williams either. I met Robin twice, but I never knew him. And like, there's certain people that, man, they give you so much extra with what they do, that you're just like, what? It was hard. Norm was hard. Geraldo was a hard one too. In fact, I was there. I went to that club 2 weeks after Geraldo died.
Yeah.
And I went down and checked in the hotel. I go, you're not giving me the room that Geraldo died in, right?
Yeah.
I said that to the lady because my wife was with me, because Ray was with me. She goes, I don't want to stay in the room that Geraldo died in. I'm like, that's valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe
J- John Pinette was one that really hit me because I never worked with him, but I got the job to MC for him at Ontario, and he died the week before. Like,
motherfucker, he did that
yeah,
to you? That sucks.
yeah. So I was like so excited. Like I even, I was telling everybody and stuff. So I was really bummed by that because I thought, like I said, I never met him, but I loved his comedy, and he just seemed like he was such a great guy.
Yeah, he was another guy who he could get you, the word is peals of laughter. Like he would get people laughing in the audience so hard because it just kept going. It
Yeah.
just kept going. You go now. He just kept screaming it, and I remember seeing him. I was at the Improv or something, watching him on stage one night, and it was amazing. It was amazing how he would abuse an audience, just fucking abuse them.
Well, let's get to these Twitter questions because I want to respect your time. Twitter question number one, Titus, are you scared about the future of comedy?
Nah, it always finds its level. It always will. There'll be What'll happen is, whereas Mulaney got real famous with great storytelling, it'll find its level. Someone will come out of the blue who's amazing, and it'll change comedy again. It'll. I am afraid. I am afraid of a lot of low quality people getting a lot of fame right now with dick jokes and shit that I've heard since I started.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started comedy, you had to be, Robin was quoting Shakespeare. Robin was, he was doing stuff about like formulas. He was referencing Einstein, Robin was doing references, same like Patton. I love Patton too, because Patton will bring up stuff that certain comics make you smarter. Carlin made you smarter. Robin made you smarter. I think Patton makes you smarter. There's guys that you watch, and then there's a new group of bro guys that fucking don't. They just don't. It's just shit we've all heard for 20 or 30 years. And I know people are going to say, oh, fucking Titus thinks he knows, but hey, fuck all you. I've been doing this for 40 fucking years. I've been doing this for 40 fucking years. So if you have a problem with what my opinion, good. Have your own opinion. I don't give a shit. But comedy will find its way. Geraldo, Patrice, and Attell. Attell is so fucking, people always go, yeah, but Attell's dirty. I go, yeah, but Dave Attell is probably one of the best joke writers you've ever seen. Dave Attell, because there's exceptions to every rule. Dave Attell is dirty, but he's never offensive. Attell will take you on this road and then just take this right turn that you go, what? He's like the fry later girl's retarded, but those titties ain't retarded. And my wife and her hysterical. And there's other guys that are just dirty and they think they're doing Dave Attell and they're not. Geraldo was so fucking smart. Patrice, another guy Patrice had a way of walking through any subject in an unusual way, like great comics do it. He would remember there's a bit he does about if my mama was going to be killed unless I spelled the word restaurant. I don't know what I and he starts doing bit. He starts doing this bit with the guys holding his mom hostage. Spell it, motherfucker! He's like, okay, all right, come on, don't hurt her. R-E-S-T. Now there's an ow. There's an L. I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry, mom. I'm trying. And and it's weird. He's negotiating with these hostage guys about and all he's got to do is spell restaurant, and he can't do it. And that's an interesting way, instead of a comic just going, man, hey, anyone have a problem with the word restaurant, huh? Everybody's sitting there, your phone doesn't even know how to spell it. Like, that's like a comic like a stand-up comedian would do it. Some guys, I think, transcend it, and I think Patrice was one of those guys, and that's why I was sad when we lost some of these guys. Mitch had a weird way of looking at shit. Mitch had a weird way where, like none of us ever thought of shit the way Mitch thought of shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So to answer the question, which I did for half a fucking hour, because I don't know how to shut the fuck up. Yeah, comedy will find its level. It'll work it out. It happened during Mark Twain. It happened Shakespeare. It'll find its way. We'll find our way out of it.
I was thinking when you were talking about Bill Cosby, I was thinking of a joke that might not be funny, but But you remember when Bill Cosby got arrested? What if he was in the same jail as Vince Champ?
Well, they
No
could.
one would get that,
They had
but
something to talk about. They would have something to talk about.
both
Bill
funny
Cosby,
rapists.
Bill would be like, "Wait a minute, you weren't roofing them. See, the way I give them the drugs was so when they woke up, they weren't sure. You were just sitting in the room with the piano, and they knew exactly who you were. See, now you got to give them the drugs. Let me tell you, young boy, you got to get when you're gonna do the raping, you got to give the people the drugs. Okay." That would be, and Vince Champ just being like, "Listen, yeah, okay, all right, Mr. Cosby." Is he still in jail?
Oh yeah, but see, only comics would know that. I don't think average folk would know who Vince Champ is. But
two people. Vince Champ was a guy that was touring the country, and he was going to colleges and raping. He did a lot of it in the music rooms. He'd go to the music rooms where girls were practicing piano, whatever, by themselves, and he got in trouble for a couple. Right? It was more than one.
Yeah, like it was like every single town or whatever.
So Cosby would be like, "Well, you also were a serial rapist. You just didn't do the way you should have done the raping."
So this one, Titus, about average a year, how many DVDs of Killer Clowns do you sign?
About 10, and I always write "fuck you, Titus," because it was my first movie. It's my first movie, and I'm in it, and I didn't know anything about acting, and I got the movie, and I'm only in 3 scenes. The cool thing about those guys, the guys that directed that movie, we did our Prince party, which you're definitely invited to next time we throw it. The Chiodo brothers came to the party.
Cool!
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
That's actually like a cult classic film now, though. Like a lot of people like it. So
yeah.
And then this question is actually for me. When you were doing comedy and you started headlining out, what year did you realize, hey, okay, I don't need to worry about sales. I just could worry about, being funny, because I'm at that point where I got to worry about ticket sales for my career sometimes.
I worry about it every week. It never goes away.
Okay.
I will tell you this. Okay, a quick story. Everybody worries about it constantly. So we went to the Sports Arena in 2007 on the Magic tour for Springsteen. It was the album that had a Radio Nowhere on it. And it was a Sports Arena, and I think the Sports Arena seated 28,700 or something like that. Springsteen had sold 26,500 tickets, and Nils Lofgren told me that Springsteen was pissed that he didn't sell it out.
Wow.
Yeah. Guys, can you imagine Springsteen going, "Man, I can't believe I didn't sell it. I only sold 26,000. God damn it." Yeah. I would love to have that problem. So you will never not worry about it. On this new tour, Carrying Monsters, there's never, I think Chappelle probably doesn't worry about it, but I will bet you this. I'll bet you if Dave books a giant arena and tickets are slow and he hears about it, you can't, man. We were raised with it. It's in our DNA.
Yeah.
The first time you got a gig and you headline, they go, "Well, you didn't do that many people." It's just something that's programmed in us. How did I do? Whether you're doing 550 seats or you're doing 5,000 seats or 15,000 seats, and the problem is like Nate Bargatze's killing it. Then he sold like some arena. He did like the record ticket sales, 13,900 tickets.
Yeah.
And he's great. I get why people love Nate. And
he was bummed he didn't get 14.
Right. I'll bet you. Or the next time he goes back, let's say next year he goes back to that arena and he only does 12.5. He's gonna be as upset as Nate Bargatze gets, which is be like, "Huh, I didn't do that many." Okay. But I'm just saying, but that's so it's our job, man. I mean, does the guys at Apple, the designer at Apple, does he like, "Well, we were Apple, fuck it, we'll just put anything out"? Nope. We're like, how are we doing? How many of those did we sell?
Yeah.
It's our fucking job, man. I think about it all the time. I actually had a conversation with my wife. I go, "What are the tickets looking like in Nashville right now?" I'll be in Nashville, by the way, in a couple weeks.
All right. And then the final question, where can the folks at home follow and support you?
Go to ChristopherTitus.com. By the way, people, during COVID, I had 8 specials done at that time. I put them all up at Christopher Titus TV. There's ads in them, but you guys can watch them for free. I just put up Zero Side Effects. If you don't want to watch them with ads, you can go to ChristopherTitus.com, click through, and you can buy them. But you can watch them for free with ads, or you can go you buy them. It's like $4, or you can get all of them. And then please go to Amazon and watch Special Unit. Did you like Special Unit? What did you think of the movie? I mean, we did it for $375, man. I mean, I get that some of the production's a little bit,
I thought it was great only because I know I'm going to be in the sequel.
Yeah, that's right. Yo, Asperger's, get over here. That's
All right. I'm going to end the podcast, but don't leave because I want to ask you a question off air.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Subscribe, rate, review, and catch Christopher Titus in a town near you.
Titus, Carry Monsters, new special, Carry Monsters. It's my best one, and there's no politics. We're going to shred my family in this one.
All right. Well, Titus, I love you very much, and thank you for doing this, man.
You too, buddy. Thank you, man.
All right. Okay, now how do I stop this?
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.